Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I wanted to follow up on yesterday's video regarding Whacky Squad Studio and his deliberate removal of a critique of his video game Hell of Men Blood Brothers. If you haven't seen that video yet, I'd recommend you go give it a watch, and I'll put a card for it in the upper right corner of your screen in order to make it a little bit easier for you. Now, the reason why I wanted to follow up on this isn't because the developer doubled down, which he didn't, isn't because he was vitriolic in any way, no. I wanted to follow up because last night the developer reached out to me directly on Discord and we had a very long discussion. Now, I'll be as transparent as I can. I wasn't exactly forgiving in that conversation. Actually, I was quite blunt, direct, and to the point. But in this conversation, I got the sense that this developer, while admitting that what he did was a knee-jerk reaction to protect the visibility of his game, really isn't the malicious sort. And as such, I saw that we had a potential here for a redemption story. Something I always hope for, but rarely if ever happens. In fact, I think if I recall correctly, there's only been a single instance of a developer having a Dirty Devs video created over their actions that ever managed to turn things around and use the feedback to not only improve their game, but to rectify the situation that one of their number had created. It was a learning experience, not only for them, but for the gamers that were involved in the situation as well. First, I want to talk about what resulted from that conversation, then I want to go a little bit more in depth into why I look forward to and hope for a positive outcome here. And that came by way of an apology letter the developer posted on his Steam storefront, in which he said the following. Following the SidAlpha video here, I owe you an explanation. When I released the early access, I removed the video from Dad's Gaming Addiction here from Hub Steam out of fear. I understand that it wasn't a good idea. This censorship has not been well received, and I agree with that. All criticism is good to take, and I should have listened to it rather than react badly. I apologize to the entire community. I thank SidAlpha for his discussion and advice. I wish Hell of Men Blood Brothers would become a good game. I want to build a community, and I need to be more fair and open-minded. If you have any ideas, suggestions, I invite you to share them to improve Hell of Men. I understood that the price was not fair either. The new price is waiting for validation by Steam. I hope Hell of Men will become a game you will enjoy spending time on. Now, granted, I recommended to him that he post such a letter quite strongly if he was indeed passionate about his game and wanting to improve. I reminded him that the internet is a harsh, bitter, cruel thing, and yes, it can be difficult seeing criticism coming in from all sides, but that's also something you have to manage to deal with when you enter the public domain in this manner. Whether you're a developer, a publisher, or a PR representative, you are going to see criticism in all their myriad forms directed at you. And unfortunately for indie developers, sometimes you have to wear all of those hats at the same time. Some of it will be fully justified and understandable, and at times there will be completely unreasonable people out there as well that expect far more from you than they really have any right to expect. That's simply par for the course. Some people won't even offer valid criticism. They'll simply do what they can to degrade and to belittle. That sort of criticism isn't actually criticism at all and is typically best ignored as it holds no legitimate value, but that can be hard as well. Hell, it's something I still struggle with on a daily basis, so I know full well how difficult it can be, especially for someone that isn't used to it or isn't expecting it. Because people like that are going into the conversation clearly with an agenda in mind. They're approaching it with their own angle and their own bias. It's not in any form or manner objective in any way. It's the people that simply say, "You're trash." Well, that's great. I'm glad you think that way, but that is simply an opinion, and a terrible one at that. It has no factual basis backing it up. And that's why traditionally, and granted sometimes even I fail at this as well, I tend to go into these videos in these situations specifically not to degrade or to belittle. I go into these to figure out what happened and why, and then explain why I think it's either good or bad, and most of that is purely based on objective reality. Now, on that note, I was extremely critical of the game. At the lack of AI, at the problems with no grid work being in place that will help players snap new structures where they want them, how the game has a multitude of improper design that will cause problems in the future. All of that is objective truth, because with any RTS you have to consider longevity and playability, and the majority of that comes from a solid base of players that traditionally are more focused on the multiplayer and competitive components of the game. I also explained why removing the critique from the Steam page was bad as it was acted upon, and this was confirmed by the developer out of a desire to protect sales and income. And the removal of a critique purely for monetary gain is objectively not a good thing for the consumer. It shields them from that review that they can use to make an informed purchasing decision. And also, I was highly critical of the price of the game, and there were a couple of reasons for that. The first is that there are certain expectations placed upon a game by many gamers that are derived from the cost of the title alone. For many, that is something I don't agree with at all, is the concept of $1 per hour of playtime as a rule of thumb. Now, I don't like that idea because it can push developers to overinflate and bloat their own games just to hit some imaginary target of playtime in order to appeal to the mindset of gamers that use such things as a measurement of worth and of value. Now, myself, I would rather a $20 game be only 5 to 8 hours of meaningful and worthwhile gameplay and story if that means it will be more polished, as opposed to injecting a massive amount of filler and meaningless fetch quests in order to artificially inflate the playtime to get it up to that imaginary number. And secondly, the $12 asking price was just not a good fit for the developer either. I felt that it was too ambitious, and it carried along with it far too many expectations in regards to the quantity and the quality of content. After all, many gamers interested in giving an indie developer a try will be far more forgiving of a general lack of content or a lack of polish if a game is at a lower price point than they will at a higher one. A $3 to $5 title carries with it a lot less in the way of simple expectations than it will with the $10 to $15 price point. And that can be crucial for an entry-level developer. After all, it's important that they don't bite off more than they can chew in that regard. I'm sure they have a clear vision of the game, at least I certainly hope they do, and I wouldn't want to see player expectations being out of line with that. I don't think that would really be good for anyone. It would be setting up the developer for failure and the gamer for disappointment. And in all fairness, in the midst of all this, I myself even realized that I've sort of fallen away from adequately explaining my points and, more importantly, my reasons behind why I'm critical of certain aspects as I am, and I really do need to be better at doing that, which is why I'm here talking about it now. Because it's important for the viewer, and more importantly for the developer, that I don't create these videos out of any real sense of malice. I don't set out to destroy, quite the opposite in fact, because if a game or a project is destroyed, who does that really serve, yeah? Who does it help? It is important that gamers are made aware of the actions taken and why it is either good or bad. That's simply information and my decision and opinion behind it. And that's why the title Dirty Devs exists, not to break someone, no, but simply explain that this developer did something inherently anti-consumer, did so knowingly, and usually damaged someone in the process. Now, I know my tone of voice doesn't always convey that. I'll be the first to admit that I have a temper, a fairly short one at that, and the tone of my voice only serves to amplify that to an extreme degree. I can be quite vicious at times, but it's not out of any intent at malice or seeking to cause harm. It's not vengeance that I seek, no, quite the opposite. I want these developers to see and to realize that what they did was wrong, and it harms not only the consumer, but themselves in the process. Each and every time, I hope that the developer can take this information in stride and use it to learn and to grow. Granted, it doesn't happen very often. Typically, we end up with another Ata Berdiev or an Andrew Watt, the latter of which I'm sure many will recall was quite malicious, and he did everything in his power to make the whole thing personal, and I in turn picked up the gauntlet he threw down and proceeded to use it as a battering ram against his allegations. But thankfully, that sort of person is growing few and far between. What I at least am seeing here with this developer is someone who did do something wrong, something that was deliberately anti-consumer in nature, something that he did admit to, who didn't fully grasp the implications of his actions. Yes, he attempted to use his youth and inexperience as a shield, which is a notion that I quickly disabused him of, but ultimately I saw in this developer at least a possibility that some good could come from all of this. Because, as I said, I don't want to destroy anyone. I don't want to destroy the game either. No, I would much rather he learn from his mistake and as a result come out the other side better for it and more focused and determined to create a good game that people can buy and enjoy playing. That would be the optimal outcome, and it's something I hope to see each and every time. Unfortunately, we've only seen it happen, one time now? But who knows, maybe now we'll have two. After our lengthy discussion, he thanked me for it, and I responded with, "Don't thank me yet, the ball's in your court. It's up to you to decide what to do with it." Because my first and only duty isn't to the developer, it's not to the game, it's not even to my own wallet and income, it's to the consumer. It's just that simple. And the ball really is in his court. He has the potential to turn this around and make his game a success as a result. Because imagine a developer that digs deep, focuses on their passion, overcomes the hurdle of one of their mistakes, and comes out the other side with a completed game at a fair price. People are going to respect him for it, and as a result, will be all the more willing to share that success with their friends and on social media. As the saying goes, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. And I can't think of any more fitting words for these situations than that. This developer has an opportunity here. I certainly hope he grasps it with both hands, because if he does, that will be an optimal outcome for absolutely everyone. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.